Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I don't know if you've ever seen one before, but I am a directional driller. That always usually gets some applause. I actually have my hard hat and safety glasses in here because most of the response I get from everybody is the same response, which is, you're a directional driller? Because I think in general, guys, I'll just say it, it's almost like we're unicorns in a sense, okay? And in some ways, it goes both ways on that. Okay, here we go. All right. So I'll just get straight to the point. I'm responsible for bankrupting Whiting. I'm going to show you why and how I bankrupted Whiting. And then I'll tell you Whiting was overjoyed to pay me $16,472 in drilling bonuses to do it. So I put in the pictures. I'm an actuary that became a directional driller. The fun part about that statement is that the likelihood you guys know what an actuary is and does is about the same as you knowing what a directional driller is and does. It's fascinating. Actuaries deal with risk and uncertainty, distribution models, predictive things. It's all about mitigating risk. And in the simplest terms, it's about keeping an insurance company solid. That's pretty much it. It's all lots of proven math, lots of stuff that works, and pretty advanced stuff. I loved it, enjoyed it, got into it, and found out I had too much personality for the position. Okay, anyway, I knew that one wasn't going to go over too well. But I got a bachelor's degree in actuarial science, worked in that field, and mostly in, I'll simplify it saying it's data science. Over 15 years, been worked a lot as a developer, building my own tools in order to do a lot of the analytics that you're going to see the results of here, R, Python, that type of thing. I was referred to once by a Six Sigma Master Black Belt that I was what they call a natural lean Six Sigma process improvement guy. And what that means is I naturally am able to put all these different things together, find the sources of variation, control them, and improve outputs. Simple. I'm sorry. And you know, at a fundamental level, that's something that just kind of naturally do. So being able to drill faster or improve operations and things like that, it's exciting, it's fun. Now, the story of how I went from being an actuary to a directional driller, that's a thrilling tale. I want to do it justice, but there's no time here. But I drilled my first well in the Barnett Shale, horizontal, back in 2006. And then since that time, 243 total directional wells, including 112 horizontals. I've developed 3 directional drilling algorithms. I call them formation top curve building, a landing algorithm called the rule of 8486, and a personal favorite, directional zone threading. And I've also, because of the background, I developed what I call production capacity analytics that actually utilizes machine learning at all of the data sources, and I mean everybody's data, from what I uniquely get to see in my role all the way back to geophysics. And what I found is patterns exist everywhere, because at the end of the day, guys, the one thing that unites us all is the core, is the rock. And everybody sees it kind of in a different way. One group's signals, another person's noise, right? You've heard that one before. And the exciting part is when you put it all together. The most interesting part is that nobody really knows what I do in this role. And the things that I see in this world, I'm going to try my best to show you. And I'm going to show you how it relates to every single presentation that has gone before. Great presentation, guys. I mean, it's really, really exciting stuff. All right, so the horizontal drilling sins, okay? The struggle is real. All right, so here's what we got. The directional driller is constantly pulled between 2 competing silos. You know what they are. Geologist and geosteering, and the drilling engineer, okay? Speed, want to go fast, ROP, making hole, versus marker hunting. Now, right in the middle of that, and keep in mind, the one who pays me and the one who can fire me is the one who wants speed. That's going to sound funny. Maybe to you it might sound funny. But in the first 30 horizontal wells, I never met a geologist. or a mudlogger, ever. Then I got to go up to North Dakota, and they put those guys in the same room, and suddenly I'm talking to people. And I didn't know, this is important, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to talk to geology. I say that sincerely, because you know how do you want to know how the mudloggers reacted to me when I came over and said, hey, what are you seeing there? Okay, first off, if you've ever seen that motion, like if someone's been around a dog that tried to bite him, and then I come up and I say hi, and I mean, literally, I've had people like flinch back. And I know that, and I'll tell you why that happens. Guys, what's the difference between God and a directional driller?
God knows he's not a directional driller.
Okay, Jim got it right. He got it right for just about everywhere but Texas. Okay, Jim's answer was God doesn't think he's a directional driller. Now, if you say that joke in Texas, the answer is not much. Okay, so the marker hunting is the main thing that kills speed. It's the thing that's really, really, really frustrating. Every single well you drill, it's marker hunting this, going up, and this picture illustrates what it is. Now, you guys have all heard, I know, everyone talks about, geology will say things like, all right, I'm in a dark hallway, and I've got to go to the edges to kind of know where I am and feel that out. Or they say, my personal favorite, you know, we drill the wells by looking through the rearview mirror. All right, it's more accurate to say we drill the wells by leaving the road to know we're on the road. Okay, constantly drilling out a zone to know we're in zone, map it, whatever you want. And this one I always point to because this was the standard pattern that we deal with all the time. You come down, you land the curve, you go out the top, you go out the bottom, and you repeat over and over and over again. Now, for those of you who know about resistivity and things like that, I think everyone can agree on one thing, and that is at the very end in that place where it went down, that's nothing but water there, right? Now, I didn't know this at the time. All I was learning was what happens before you go in and out. And resistivity could give you a warning for that. Later on, when I learned that's water, why in the heck did we go down into the water? Isn't that a bad thing, guys? Maybe I'm asking too hard of questions. I don't know. But at the end of that day, those arrows down at the bottom shows you how much work that is for me. You see all those arrows? Every single one of those are slides. Now, remember, I get paid by speed, period. Every time I'm doing those arrows, someone's on the phone or on the rig phone, whatever, and it's the same thing. What the hell are you sliding for, boy? We need that ROP. Over and over and over again. And this constant battle is what keeps being drawn out. They tell me to go fast. They keep sending me up and down all around. Now, being a data guy, I track this a little more thoroughly than others. I discovered things like, hey, when we go up over that top marker, lots of interesting things happen. When we go down to the bottom, these patterns repeated, and I found out it's an algorithmic process if you wanted to be able to, quote, stay between the lines without ever leaving it. I call it directional zone threading. This is an example of it. All right? Just so you know, that scale is 6 feet. That is a 10,300 foot lateral. I drilled 95% of that entire lateral inside that 6 foot window. This is horizontal well number 60 for me. It is the first time I ever heard the words from a geosteer. I know where the top and bottom are. I don't need to marker hunt. Let me put that in perspective for you. Let's call this what I call it the sidewalk. I'm going to tell you exactly what my world is without any of the math. Now you see this sidewalk. It is 6 feet wide. For the metric people, about 2 meters. Okay. What we did here was drill 2 miles on something the size of that sidewalk with a 6-inch bit and stayed inside there 95% of the way. Oh, did I forget to mention? I did it 11 days faster than the prior well on that pad. Maybe it might be good to point out too that I did it blindfolded. Okay. Sound pretty cool? Well, guys, if you were on that sidewalk, seriously, even blindfolded, you could tell where you were, couldn't you? There was grass on the right. There's a ditch on the left. If you ever stepped off of a sidewalk before, you know what happens. All right. This is the kind of patterns that repeat over and over in the marker hunting. Now, that was March of 2013 where I drilled that particular well. I was pretty proud of that. And then later on, literally the next month, I'm sitting in the church choir. I'm actually off, and I'm sitting next to a guy, and I just strike up a conversation with him. He's a geophysicist. Now, he straight up, I have no idea what a geophysicist is. So I did a lot of smiling and nodding. I said, geophysicist, I hear geo, so I think geology, I think geosteering. But I had to ask him this question because he was explaining what he did. He was talking about rock mechanics. I can follow that math. That's kind of fun. You know, he's talking about the wave transference, all these things. It was cool. But then I asked him a question. Hey, I got a simple question for you. Remember, I'd done this sidewalk thing. Hey, the more parallel you are to the dip, does that give you a better frac? And this was his answer. He goes, well, yeah, it would. I mean, but the main point of it, though, is you want to be fracking like rock with like rock. And then I just stared at him, like rock with like rock. Give me a break. Why do you guys go looking around all the time? So I get it that you guys are doing seismic and you kind of have the idea of the way things are going, but why are you marker hunting all the time? Why are you making us constantly going in and out of this rock? The rock's not the same. It doesn't drill the same. Ben Thompson earlier in his presentation, he highlighted that fact. Okay, guess what? They don't even steer the same. All these different events that I'm seeing as the driver of the car, so to speak, are showing up. And I asked him, what on earth? Why are you looking around all the time? His answer surprised me. He said, what's marker hunting? So now guys, when you're in the field, all right, and you hide the fact that you have a college degree because the first thing you ever hear when you go into the field is, man, I hate them damn college boys back in the office. So you don't go that route. Hopefully, when you're actually talking to somebody intelligently on the phone, other people don't hear you because then they start to think weird things about you. But anyway, that's another story. My point here is he had no idea what he was talking about. My perspective is, guys, I figure you guys know where the dip is because I can do the math and figure that out. So if you know where the path is going, why are you having me look around? And this is where I found out, he wasn't even talking to geology. And I figured out why much later. There you are, you're looking at seismic plot. The resolution on that, 60, 100 feet, okay? The sidewalk, he can't see it. So this is, I looked at this is great. You have the road analogy, this one works great. This is the same sidewalk I showed you earlier. Now from the geosteerer perspective, you know, they've got their little markers to look for. Now maybe the guy beside me can see this part, but he can't see all the other detail. So all the thing about mapping went through, but look very carefully at this. This is one of the wells that I drilled. This one's very straightforward. You see all the stars on there? That's where they sent me to go out so they could see where they were. All right, now you see that part at the end, that little hump right there at the very end where we almost went out? I warned the guy who was my relief, he was only gonna be there for one day. I warned him, I said, look, you gotta be careful because when you cross this sidewalk, what it's really like over there, it's kind of like a ditch. And you'll go into the ditch and you gotta fight your way back, all right? Well, you can tell he ignored that. We almost went out into the upper Bakken and shelled out and would have ruined the well. Thankfully, he was able to correct it. You can imagine how much sliding it took to do that, and we brought it back in. All right, so that's the world. Now, what have we done when we have that? We got all the nice little lines. Okay. This is the world. This is how I see it. And the fascinating part is all the data that I've collected staying on that sidewalk, nobody knows about, has, or even cares about. So, gamma markers can show it all. You got to leave the road to know you're on the road. That's the perspective. Now, let's get to the real stuff you want to hear. How did I bankrupt Wyatt? All right, I'll show you how. Here was the opportunity. This is, the date of this is important, okay? This is December and January of 2014 into 2015. Between the time I drilled that sidewalk well, which is, remember, the only time I've ever heard no marker hunting. And then, because I met this geophysicist, this is the first time I started asking questions like, hey, these things drill differently. I wonder if they produce differently. Based on what I was learning from him. So here I am breaking down a silo, not realizing I'm doing it. It took us almost a year to have an intelligent conversation It's like, you know, go with any guy who's got the seismic or does all of that and go, hey man, that's a fast zone. What does that mean to a driller? Fast ROP. What does that mean to somebody who's looking at seismic? Fast time, p-value waves, something like that, right? We had a terrible time communicating. It took him that long to actually talk to a geologist and figure out that what I was telling him was accurate about looking for these markers. And to me, that was just fascinating. But between that time and here, it was interesting for me. It was a little over a year and a half, and I ended up working for 9 different operators. And I asked them all the same question when we were doing those laterals. Okay? Asked them the same question. Which one of these zones produces the best? And now look, I'm going to admit my ignorance here, but I was shocked to discover that nobody cared. Guys, it's straight up. No one cares. I thought geology at least would. Which one of these produce? I don't know. I was shocked by this. I'm like, come on, you guys are smart people telling me what to do. You think up smart stuff. You're telling me where to go. And I come back and ask you about production. And guys, I'm going to admit my ignorance here. I actually thought we were drilling wells to produce. And for the first time ever, I find out nobody cares about production. Drilling doesn't care about production. They're about making hole and getting things done. Remember, I'm being tasked to do this. But as I collect this data and drill all over the different state, okay, and all this type of thing, we're up here at wells 80, 81, and 82 at this point. All right? Here are the 3 wells. There are 3 infill wells. So guys, they drilled the other 2. They pretty much should know where the thing goes, right? So they wouldn't be marker hunting as much, right? Yeah. Okay, there's the 3 wells. This is exactly how they were drilled. Okay? Marker hunting, marker hunting, marker hunting. Now, I got a trainee at this point. I'm going to talk about well number 2 specifically. I've done well number 1. The algorithms I developed, I've learned several things at this point. Number 1, I know which way the well's going to go, so I got the map. Number 2, I know what each of those zones, how they drill, how they steer. And I know which one's the sidewalk. Check it out. Let's look closely here at well number 2. To illustrate this point, those boxes are when I worked my 12-hour shift. I want you to notice very carefully what it looks like. Can you see? They sent us up into the top zone. Do you see that little bitty baby bump right there, right when we go through that? Okay, that is you stepping off the edge of the sidewalk and about to fall into the ditch. If I don't check that quickly, I'm going to have that episode on the prior well where we almost went up and shelled out. Now, what this algorithm has learned from this point is how to stay inside the ditch. Simple. And I made a bet with the driller on the rig. It's going to be a little cocky here, but I made a bet with the driller. I said, I think I've figured out when these guys are going to freak out, how far we can get before they see a marker. And when they do freak out, I'm telling my directional hand here, when they do freak out, they're going to say things like, oh my gosh, we're about to go out the top. Or we got to come down. They're going to say all kinds of different things to get you to go where you want to go. But what I knew about what I was doing is you can tell by this scale, that's an 8-foot window there. How far did I move inside that box once I got into the zone? Well, the MWD hand was paying attention. And so when geology came towards the end of my tower and said, hey man, we're about to go out the top, this kid who was listening to everything goes, well, didn't you say that we're like, when we crossed that last thing, we're like 11 feet from the top? Haven't we only moved like 1 foot in the last, 1 foot in TVD in the last 1,000 feet? Yes, I did make him breakfast the next day. It was awesome. But the kid, the guy who was trying to make me steer, backed off on that. Now you can see what happened when I left. Okay, I left them totally set up, exactly how to drill it, when to steer, all this stuff. I can tell you, if you wanted to stay in that zone, I can tell you exactly how many different slides it's going to take you all the way to the end, when you have to do them, how to be able to control it, and I'll make you faster hole than you've ever imagined because I know exactly how long it's going to take you to drill that. Now, let's show the sidewalk part. Look what happens while I'm asleep. You see that part where it runs up a little bit? The time of the day is really important. And we have that time of the day comes, that's another marker change is given in, now we got to come down. So he goes to come down and look what happens. That is one of the best deflection things I've ever surveyed. Deflections are horrible. Now, however thick this little thing is that we deflected on, it's deflected. And it deflects hard. You want micro doglegs and tortuosity? That's where you get it. Formation-induced elections are the worst things I've ever encountered, the one things I have to fight the most against. So what happens is they deflect, now they're panicking because now all the day guys are up and they're saying things like, oh man, the whole thing must have changed. We're gonna go out the top, the whole well's gonna be ruined and we're all gonna have to sidetrack. No, they haven't seen a marker in how far. So this is where I figured it out. Every one of those lines is 1,000 feet. So they haven't seen a marker. We can get about 2,000 feet before they demand it. So what happens? We go in there. Company men are former directional hands, and they know about things like this, and they do what you know they're going to do. We slide blind. Basically, we slide before we see it because we got to get down. And then I come on tower. So look what I'm getting. That's an 85-degree angle in the hole is what I get to deal with. We shoot this thing down. I know this is going to happen. Engage the algorithmers in. We correct, we stay inside here. And my trainee picks up on something. Up top there, we have to do some kind of sliding, basically every other stand. Down here, it's like every 4. Sliding is slow. We slide less down here. We go faster. So we stay down there, we go through there, go as far as we can. Guess what? Look, 2,000 feet, great, we gotta go back up. So we go back up, now we're in the middle. Now we get in the middle, and the reason why that small box is there is one reason. We had a tool failure. So that's all I got to work, had a tool failure, swap things out. And during all that time, I come back in and there's me on the last box there because a major decision was made. Company man said, screw it, we're gonna go down into that better drilling. Why? Because Whiting pays bonuses. Okay, so here's the entire well shown again. Okay, and this time it's just gonna animate and show you how many different times they made decisions. Okay, they told me to go in and out. Every time they marker hunt, I have to do a ton of work. And in the case of when it gets up into that top one, it could break things. You do all that, we have the failure, we get done, but there's the decision. I want my ROP, I want my speed. We come back down in there because the kid that I taught did this. And what does this do? All right, everything craters in the oil field, right? Rig count goes down. I'm out of a job. I drilled 4 wells for these guys, made a bunch of money. I start looking at production for the first time because it's available. And this is when I found out that what I just did, I set a record on that well for those guys. We finished it faster than anything else. I made a personal bonus of $4,750, and all I did was actually drill the fastest loser. This is March of 2015. And suddenly I discover that all my quests to do super speed things is actually killing production. How bad? Let's see. Look how the performance there, look at the days on drilling. Okay, that's a super mega fast well. Why? Because all my training learned from me was that the best drilling was the lower portion. And what did that do? Well, that kid was a brand new trainee, but his buddies were the 2 company men. Those 2 company men were former directional hands themselves, and they start sharing that information about where the fastest drilling is because now they know because I pretty much served it up on a platter for them. I've just given Whiting everything they want. They want speed, they got it. Look at the correlation just on those 3 wells. It's almost perfect. It gets worse. This is 4 years out. And just as a side note, there were 2 wells that are drilling the pad. Remember those? Okay. Can you tell, looking at those other 4, which ones were plug and perf or sliding sleeve? Can you tell which one was the slowest drilled or which one's the fastest drilled? Is it interesting how all the production's kind of tight and together? Would it interest you to know that all of those wells are on that little sidewalk piece in the middle? They average between the 3 there, 55 to 65% of wellbore placement in there. So we've got consistent wellbore placement and we see consistent production, but I still drilled a well that never paid for itself. And just to add insult to injury, was also the fastest well to be declared stripped well. Now, having an actuarial background looking at numbers like this freaks me out because Whiting happily paid me $16,471 because I know how to drill fast. But what stands out, and should stand out to you, is that I just showed that I could keep you on a ditch, a sidewalk, or the grass. And what shows is that the grass is the best drilling. I've never looked at production until this day. And now I look at it and I'm shocked by it, but it matches up what everybody has said before. I've always been fascinated by this because everything you guys are seeing in your data, I can see on a sidewalk. And therefore, I'm the person most responsible for the success or production success or failure of any well you drill. You don't know who I am. You don't want to know who I am. And most of the time, my services have been sold to you because a drilling engineer got sold in a strip club. This is the quote. This is what the industry is facing. This is the hard truth, guys. This is December 26th, 2017. Drilling superintendent. I wish I had recorded it when he said it. This is exactly what he said. Who gives a blank about production? We're here to drill a well. Drilling doesn't care about production. The person most responsible for your production works for drilling. Geology is hunting around because, quite frankly, it doesn't seem like they talk to the geophysicist guys. The heterogeneity that I see driving the dang car is matching up completely to production, and I control your production. Don't believe me?
And aren't you guys being removed from actively removed?
Well, yeah, they're removing us to boot, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go some, this is 24. This is, okay, what I did is I took the wells on that pad and it just expanded out, literally, a bunch of wells within 5 miles of this one, all drilled by the same operator and everything like that. Look at the goofy distribution. When you add in the percentage on the sidewalk, the two up there at the top are in the 70% range, basis on the other ones there. That distribution is ugly. How on earth can this industry in the financial side make that work? Range of uncertainty? This is why I can only make money at $75 a barrel? All right, this is Whiting's enhanced completion wells that they bragged about back in 2015, where basically they upped the sand. Look at the spread on that. Did the spread change? Hey, the numbers went up. They got more oil out of the ground, but look at the spread. The spread's still there. Lean Six Sigma process improvement. That is not something you can predict from. That's the worst case of worst case scenarios. All right, Joe, so that answers one. There's one question we got to ask, though. What happens if you do stay in the most production zone? Well, first off, you can do it. And one of our presenters did it. Okay, there's your range of uncertainty. You control wellbore placement, you control production. The data in my world, what I see, what happens, matches up to everybody's presentation that is done today. All I have found in this journey, especially being the data science guys, I get to connect with all of you. Your data is explained. Things that I see in my world show up in yours, and vice versa. So this is a 10 by 10, it's literally a 10 by 10 small operator. There's 30 wells drilled. 26 of them straight up marker hunting all the way around. But 4 of them, where it's perfectly controlled, all 4 of those wells are 94% or better inside that sidewalk. Which one would you rather predict from? Ron asked that question earlier. What would happen if you drilled all the way in there? This is a deterministic model, and guess what? I got 4 years of data on it. I can therefore look at that shift. What happens to your range of uncertainty here? Who controls that? I do. And you don't know it, and you have no way to connect to me. But the cool part is I can connect to you. And when I do, that's the result. In Six Sigma, Lean Six Sigma process improvement, everything. Find the variables that are influencing the most. Get them under control. Get them under control, and you get consistent results. It's time to shift the curves. I cannot see unconventional market with 112 different horizontals drilled in it, where every well is being drilled in the same way, and this battle between speed and marker hunting only ends up in one place, and that is they're going to find the fastest drilling and stay in it. When I came to the Permian, after being, I went back into the data science world, and 2 years later, got an opportunity to go back and drill again, because after I found out all this, I wanted to get another shot, see if I can make that happen. When I get out there, and what do I find? First thing that comes out of the mouth of the first Permian operator I worked with. Hey man, once you find that better drill, we're gonna stay in it, and that's that. We tell geology what to do here. And 6 operators later, and 12 different laterals all in the Permian. with their wonderful 50-foot windows because they can get away with them because you can't see it on seismic. It's a marker hunting dream. And I'm just the guy driving the car. But I'm ultimately responsible to increasing your production. And that's it. Any questions? Did I scare you all? All right, this is closing. Okay, now I'm going to be positive. Now look, this is closing the loop, people. This is how we close the loop. Everybody talked about all the data from far away up until being on that sidewalk. I'm the guy who can keep you there. I'm not trained to do it. I don't know why I should do it, and I'm not incented to do it. But the moment you identify a sidewalk, now you've got a metric that drilling can actually glom onto that has predictable results.
That's a big impact.
Big impact.
Thanks, Joe.
I bet
Good job.